now joined by Ian Darler. Ian, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day to join us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, mate. You're welcome.
Brilliant. Really appreciate it. So just to get straight in then, Ian, if you could just give us a quick outline of your role at the club.
Yeah, I think it's changed over the years. In 1979, I started as the head groundsman, and then over the years it slightly changed to be incorporated to a dual role of stadium manager. Quite a variation of work throughout, and obviously the maintaining the stadium to ensure it's up to certification standards, and equally trying to keep the pitch looking as good as it could possibly be for our sort of legendary players. I think the difference between where we are and the big clubs is quite significant when you look at some of the Premier League sides spend £500,000 to £1 million on their pitch and have contractors in and do it. And obviously we try to do as much as we can on our own to save costs, although we do have contractors in every now and then because there are works that we can't do. So quite a variation, but yeah, the two titles really are head groundsman and stadium manager.
Fantastic stuff, brilliant. And of course, you're assisted by Mick in that as well, of course. And yeah, I believe it's obviously well known that we have one of the best pitches, obviously, in the Football League, obviously with the limited resources we've got, which is obviously a massive well done to obviously yourself and to Mick. But yeah, just a little bit about your journey, if that's okay. So how did you come to work at Cambridge? Did you always want to move into ground management, or was it something you sort of discovered and really enjoyed?
I think my dream, as like a lot of youngsters, was to be involved in football, hopefully being able to play in football. Failed 2 trials and knew that I wanted to work outside. The opportunity came up to latch onto a work experience opportunity as a greenkeeper, which I did. I've delivered reasonably high standards over that 2 weeks and was really surprised to be offered the chance to be an apprentice groundsman. And as fortune would run for me, at the time, Cambridge United were training at the place that I was doing my education. And the surface that we worked on in those days was probably as good as anything in the country. I was really fortunate to have an outstanding groundsman as a boss. And Cambridge United were playing on a main pitch at the Abbey Stadium that could only be described as a safari park at the time. It was horrendous. And I was completely blown away, having done 2.5 years of apprenticeship groundsman work, to be offered the opportunity to come for an interview at the club. And just really came along for the experience of an interview, not expecting to get the job. And 42 years later, I'm still there.
Fantastic. No, brilliant. And like you say, you must have started quite young, which is absolutely brilliant to have obviously seen how the club's sort of progressed over the years, which is amazing. But yeah, just on that, so what would you say was the best bit and the worst bit about your current role?
Probably the best bit is having the opportunity to work in football 42 years from the age of 19, which at the time was the youngest head groundsman in the Football League, and I still believe that is the case. So I think that's one of the good bits. One of the worst bits, like we experienced last week with the Harrogate game, is probably having to drag them frost sheets on and off, because as a job goes, it's an absolute killer. They're easy enough to get on, but obviously you can appreciate when they've got frost and they're damp, then they weigh an absolute ton. So that's not one of the best things. Other challenging things, I do get frustrated when players don't do as they're told after a game with the warm downs, when we're sort of trying to work on there and a lot of visiting teams just totally ignore you. But the other best bits, I suppose, really are sort of working with the environment within the football world. I mean, generally, it's a great place to be.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, and I think that's sort of a bit of a theme that we've come across doing a few of these interviews with different people at the club, and that is a great way of, there's so many different roles that you can be involved in football still and still have a fantastic football career, even if you're not a player, obviously, such as people, even myself, obviously, for yourself and people like that. So it's really interesting to hear. In terms of favourite moments at the club, is there anything that sticks out, or maybe 1 or 2 moments that you think, oh, that was amazing?
God, now you got me. I'm sport for choice, really, as there are simply so many great memories. I suppose in my younger day, getting the chance to train and play in the reserves in proper games was exciting for a youngster. Playing alongside players like Graham Daniels, our director of football, was pretty amazing. even when he tells the story about when he came there on trial and I was playing left back and he thought I was a pro. So that was quite a nice thing to harbour. All the pranks from the players over the years have been tied up on a goal post and things like that. Pretty outstanding memories. But then on the serious side, I think off the back of winning one of the Groundsman of the Year awards, one of the prizes was to write an article in the England-Montenegro programme that was played at Wembley. So that was quite nice. The Groundsman of the Year awards are always special. I think personally, having a book published 18 months ago was pretty incredible, that anybody would be interested in reading about a groundsman, but it's done reasonably well. Quite proud of the fact that it's done so much for mental health and help with the Heads Up campaign and things like that. And obviously you're aware of it, you work at the club, you know how far we've travelled with the mental health side of it. So that really is really high on the list of successes for me.
Fantastic, that's brilliant. And obviously just to say a bit about your book, if that's all right. It's obviously the name of the book and where people can get it.
Yeah, Life's a Pitch, and it's still on Amazon, although at the moment again it's sold out, so there's a bit of a delay on it, which again I'm really surprised, but it's obviously good news, and like I said, it keeps bringing things to the forefront, which are really important in this current time.
Fantastic, brilliant. Obviously it's fantastic, all the players obviously get to wear Heads Up on their kit this season. It's obviously a fantastic cause, and one that obviously we're all very passionate about at Cambridge, which is brilliant. Just in terms of favourite things then, is there a favourite player or favourite manager that you've worked with or know during your time here at Cambridge?
Do you know what, Louis? There's simply too many great players and managers that I've worked with to single them out, because there's so many that are friends, and if I started talking about them, then somebody would pull me up for saying, oh, I thought you was your mate. But what I would say is there have been an awful lot of amazing managers and players that I've worked with. The hardest part is when the managers get sacked or move on, or the players go to another club, or the apprentices that I used to work with over the years, because obviously in the old days, the apprentices used to spend time with me. If they didn't get taken on, it was quite heartbreaking for them. And we always used to try and put an arm around their shoulder and sort of say, look, there's other things in the pot, exactly where you're coming from now. And a lot of them went on to achieve other jobs in football, which is pretty amazing. So the only thing I would say is that as the club is at present, I would say that it's probably the best working environment I've had for a long, long time at the football club. And there's some pretty amazing people from top to bottom.
Fantastic, nice. It does feel like there's a real good atmosphere around the club at the moment, and obviously it's a great credit to everyone involved, which is fantastic. I can definitely agree. What I'd like to ask you now, and this is a question a few people have asked me actually, is what does a day in your life look like, and how does that change throughout the season?
Oh, blimey, where do we start on this one? So what does a day look like? Well, firstly, no 2 days are the same. Let's assume, for argument's sake, it's a Tuesday and we have the first team evening game that kicks off at 7:45. So we would arrive at the stadium 7:30 in the morning, straight into the office, check the email, see if there's anything that's come in work-wise that needs attention for that evening. Potentially, perhaps Nick sold some advertising and the boards need changing around the ground for a new sponsor. At 8 a.m, we would then get the mowers out. We start cutting the pitch, and when I say we cut both ways, that means we cut up and down the pitch and we cut crossways, and that's what creates the Battenberg effect. And that's just a simple stroll in the park, which takes 5 hours. So after 5 hours of walking up and down, we'll grab a bite to eat, and then out come the strings so that we can mark out the pitch. That takes about an hour. I then have to scuttle off and check the moisture levels of the pitch, because we have to have the surface at a certain moisture level, otherwise it will either cut up or it won't stay stable. If the levels are low, then we need to put a little bit of water on to raise the levels. Next, we're moving on to checking the nets and putting the corner flags out, to putting the skyboards out behind the goal and alongside the goal, You're testing me here, aren't you? This is just like a normal day at work now.
I'm just trying to learn so I can, I can
carry out all the pre-event checks, which is testing the emergency lights, testing the PA, reading the turnstiles, signing off all the documentation we have to do every game, which goes on to the local authority. Then it's time to grab a bite to eat before people start arriving at the stadium. Once the players have completed their first warm down, we're back out there divoting, and nine times out of 10 it would then be splashing a bit of water on the surface again with the irrigation, just to quicken up the passing of the ball. And that's an interesting thing, really, because a lot of people sort of pull me and go, why do you water it? Well, it's simply that they want it a little bit zippy. So half time, same thing again. We're back out there, but in between time, I think people think me and Mick just sit and watch the game. Well, very seldom does that happen, because there's either light bulbs have blown, toilets have got blocked, somebody's been poorly, all the nice things that you don't want to know about what goes on behind the scenes. End of the match, we're back out there divoting, and then we have to make sure that the weather conditions are acceptable. Otherwise, we divot for about an hour, out come the mowers again, but on this occasion we would only cut one way because of the time and how long you've been at work. We would then wait for the press and media to disappear, and we would finally leave the stadium about 20 to midnight, and I would arrive home about 15 minutes after midnight. And 15 to 16 hour days on a Tuesday night game is pretty common. And I'm not alone there, because obviously you're aware, Gordon, the kit man, he's the same sort of hours. He's in early in the mornings. He has to get the washing done. But that's part of the course. That's what the job is.
Yeah, that's amazing. Fantastic insight there for everyone watching, just to see obviously how much hard work goes into it. Because I suppose for a lot of fans, you rock up at the stadium, you watch the game, and you go, and you don't think of everything that sort of goes along with it. So it's fascinating. Yeah, no, brilliant insight. In terms of just, you mentioned putting water on the pitch and that. I love it sometimes when you've got the players doing their warm up, and then the water will shoot out the jet at half time and try and catch the players and make them soaking wet, which is always a great laugh. I hope I'm not alone in enjoying that. Do you wait for them to be staying in the right place before you turn it on, or is it just pure accident?
Let me assure you, the players are not the only one to catch it. The amount of times over the years that Mick puts them on when he's in the cupboard, not knowing where I am or the players are, I'm surprised we haven't had a few people win 250 quid from Harry Hill. Because it does, and let me tell you, they come up with some force as well, and if you get 2 seconds of that water on you, you're drowned. So it's just fate, but normally the shooting where they're just finishing off shooting into the goal is when the players do get a little bit of a drowning at times.
Saves them having a shower afterwards, I suppose, doesn't it, anyway? So that's
keeps them sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, just on the subject of water, so how did you prepare the pitch for a match in bad weather? So obviously you've had some terrible weather recently. I remember there was a game when you had to sweep the water off the pitch quite recently at half time. And how do you prepare for that? And is there anything you can do about that, or is it just, like you say, fate?
Yeah, well, I think, again, this year's been totally exceptional, Louis, with the situation with COVID. On this closed season that's just gone, we were due to have contractors in. That obviously didn't happen because the contractors weren't prepared to come because of COVID. They didn't have the staff available. We didn't want to be, and it wasn't the board of directors. I didn't think it was the right thing to do to try and spend money when potentially weren't going to have crowds in, because I think every penny counts. But in terms of the preparation, we always work to a 10-day calendar. So for argument's sake, we knew this bad wet weather was coming, what we've just had yesterday. So whilst we're working with that, and like the Harrogate game again, we knew we were going to have 2 -4 frosts. So the frost sheets came out the night before the bad frost started. So you're always preparing to get ahead. It is, it's just one of those things that if you're expecting a lot of rain, then you do the aeration before it comes, so that you increase the flow of water through the surface. If you're expecting frost and snow, then you get your sheets on beforehand. But equally, in the summer months, when we've had sort of 36, 37, sometimes 38 degrees, obviously we then have to make sure that the grass gets enough moisture to survive. And again, we're doing that late at night. Although it's computerized, I don't have to go in now, which is a lot different when I started in 1979, because I was going in at 2 a.m. in the morning to put an irrigator on that ran along a rope, knowing it took 5 hours, and then having to go back in again and turn it round. So
Wow.
it is a luxury to have that sort of thing. But it is just about preparation. And you know yourself in life, if you prepare, then you will have some sort of success. If you don't prepare and you don't look ahead, then you're going to get caught out. And thankfully, we haven't got caught out that many times. Our organisation skills have been pretty good. But this year, it has been an exceptionally difficult period, especially with the fact that the fixtures have been back to back because of COVID. We've had to cram fixtures in, and hence I think that's why people have realised, oh, the pitch doesn't look so good this year. Well, unfortunately, with not spending the money and all the other aspects of it, in actual fact, with what it's had to have, of which we've had 8 out of 10 games where it's been absolutely saturated, the pitch has done really well that we've not actually lost a fixture. And I think even tomorrow you will potentially see, and I'm putting my head on the block here, I think you'll see games off tomorrow across the country. Just solely, not just through the COVID, but through the exceptionally wet weather.
Absolutely. No, I think I remember a few years ago, I think yourself and Mick being awarded man of the match for being the only game that was on in the Football League or League One and League Two. So that was...
that was a prime example again. Louis was the beast from the east. We prepped 9 days in advance of that getting to us, and then even on the match day we were still in at 3:30 in the morning pushing snow off. But it was about the preparation, and it was a lovely thing that the club did to give me and Mick that award. It was a hard week, but the recognition was there, and it was quite nice of them.
And by the sound of it, very well deserved. I think, as I said before, I think not many people realise how much goes into it. So, and like you said, obviously, to be able to keep getting matches on in the current circumstances is fantastic for the club in terms of it helping the playing staff as well and being able to get the games out. So it's incredible. Just you touched on there, obviously work in the summer. What exactly happened in the summer with the contractors and that, just in case people aren't aware? Because I think they see the pictures of the pitch obviously being taken. Be aware of what happens.
Sorry, my phone went, mate. I didn't get your question. Go again.
Fine. You're fine. So basically just wanted to know exactly what happened in the summer normally. So let's say people see the pictures on Twitter of the pitch being taken up and there being sand on there. But what exactly happens if you was going to, say, renovate the pitch in the summer? What would have happened this year without the COVID break?
Well, we've pushed everything back to next close season. So what we will basically be doing is our pitch is now a fibre sand pitch, which is 80% sand with fibre mixed in and 20% soil. What you have to do with those, though, you have to keep regenerating them. And that means that you keep turning it over a regular period. But equally, we have to have the fibre levels checked because you're dependent on having adequate fibre within that surface to keep the pitch held together. Now, we know that our fibre levels have dropped off, and that's a combination of things where we keep aerating, we push the fibres through the ground. So it's a vicious circle. You have to do the aeration work, but equally then you're sort of taking the pitch apart, and obviously players take stuff off their boots as well. So what we will be doing this close season, if the fixtures allow, because at the moment we don't know how things are going to pan out and what window we're going to have. We will, the first thing is the pitch will be corroded off. Now what that means is we will be taking the top 20 mil off the whole pitch, and that equates to about, without working the figures out, about 350 tonnes is going to come off that pitch. We will then put back in about 280 tonnes of fibre sand concentrate, spread evenly over the pitch, and then that is cultivated in. What people don't realise as well is that the section in front of the main stand has had no drainage for the last 18 months. And we didn't know until we went to get them pressure jetted last year that there was a significant problem. But what's been shown to happen is where we had the concert and all the tons and tons of equipment and stuff that went over the pitch did actually sink over 30 mil when they were bringing the stuff on, and it's actually crushed the drains. So the first 3 drains on the east side of the pitch are totally non-functionable. So we are also going to replace a dozen of the drains on the main pitch, which are over 23, 24 years old. So this year we're going to spend time regenerating the pitch to an adequate standard, and then it'll be reseeded. But potentially we need 7 or 8 weeks to do that work. So it's going to be another challenge. Every year is a challenge, closed season. But that's where we're at really. But
Fantastic.
the difficult thing this year was trying to find a contractor that was available to do it, because there's so many clubs in the same situation that didn't get the proper work done.
Yeah.
And the contractors are all booked up, and they're
Yeah.
obviously more interested in going to a club that's going to spend £500,000 to somewhere that's going to spend 30,000-40,000. And
Absolutely.
to a lot of people, 30,000-40,000 would be a lot of money, but in the real terms of pitch renovations, it's absolutely nothing, which unfortunately is the case.
Fascinating to have the insight again. It's really interesting to hear, and once again, exactly how much detail goes into it, because I'm sure a lot of people might just think it's just a case of scraping up with a shovel and putting more grass down, but as you said, there is so much more to it, and obviously the drainage must be a really key thing. Brilliant. So just on to one more question, and like I say, and thanks so much for your time. I've just got one more for you. Obviously, in the stadium managing groundsman is one thing, but that's not all you do. You're a very busy man. You do a lot of charity work, a lot of real good stuff for good causes, especially over Christmas. And recently, it saw you awarded the British Empire Medal, which is obviously fantastic. And all the people watching, I'm sure, want to offer their congratulations. But if you could just talk a little bit about how you came to be awarded that honour, and also about your work with the Break charity over the Christmas period, if that's okay.
The charity work really, Louis, is just a hobby that started 13 years ago. It gave me the opportunity to support a number of charities and things like that, and it started with me just wanting to help the community. So I set up my own charity. Although it's not a listed charity, we run under the name Cambridge Charity Fundraisers, and I always work with a charity with a registered number, write to them and say, look, we would like to help you, but we need to work under your umbrella. So that's what we always do. It's working alongside the things like, again, that we've already mentioned, the Heads Up, which again really started off the back of the book. I don't think people were aware of what I went through following an accident that I had, and that's given me an amazing opportunity to speak to people and work with mind and those aspects. And also off the back of that, I've had so many people come forward, and it sounds crazy to say so many people, but it has been, who have been suffering with mental health, and asked me for advice and what did you do and what was your situation, and they've gone off and sought help, and some of them were in a position of being suicidal. So the fact that I've managed to do that, I'm more proud of that than anything else that I've achieved really. But in terms of what we did with Break, again, I received an email from Break Children's Charity to say that they needed assistance. Could we do anything? And I'll put you on the spot here as well, Neil. I mean, you were kind enough to help by throwing in a big sort of prize of kit that was sitting redundant. And I think Cambridge Charity Fundraisers and Cambridge United showed that between sort of two outlets, you can change people's lives for the better. And obviously Ashley Dyer got involved as well. So between the three of us, we put together a pretty amazing package for a lot of children that were going to have no Christmas whatsoever. So we have provided Christmas presents and birthday presents moving forward for Break. But that just really touches on it. I think as a charity and whatever, I wouldn't be able to do what I do without probably working at Cambridge United. Cambridge United has given me a profile. I've also got the opportunity to get involved with people like John Stump at Mick George Limited, who has helped me for more years now than I sort of care to think about. But everything ties in between Cambridge United, Cambridge Charity Fundraisers and myself. And I'm quite proud of the fact that pre-COVID, we were raising £10,000 to £12,000 a year to help local charities. And let's hope that COVID comes to an end and we can carry on working together in the future. I can't emphasise enough how important it is for you at your side for people to make donations, and equally to me. So it's whether it be every £10, £100, £1,000 that I receive through my charity, every single penny goes to a worthy cause. We don't take anything out of it. And that's where, on top of working at Cambridge United for 42 years, I got the biggest surprise in my life by being awarded the British Empire Medal. And then even another surprise by sort of a few weeks later getting the Living Sport Awards. I've been really fortunate over the 42 years that I think winning Groundsman of the Year 5 times, 3 commendations for grounds work, winning the Lifetime Achievement Award through the Cambridge Evening News. If I went back 42 years and thought I was going to be able to say, Lonnie, you've won this, this and this, I would not have believed it. And I think the fact that I didn't do what I should have done at school, I didn't take things serious enough, like a lot of people don't. But what I would say is out of this is if you don't succeed in what you first think when you're at school, knuckle down, work hard, listen to what people advise you, and you might just succeed. I'm really chuffed with what Cambridge United have allowed me to do, and I'm really chuffed to be working with the people who I'm with now.
Fantastic, and honestly, an inspirational message that is obviously for me in there. And if people want to find out a bit more about obviously Cambridge Charity Fundraisers, would they go to your website? Is that the best thing to do? Yeah,
it's cambridgecharityfundraisers.com. And again, if anybody wants to make any donations, whether it be businesses or individuals, there's an email there where people can contact me. And we've got several things already planned for the future as soon as COVID allows. But we need to be able to get 150 people back in a room and be able to sit down and eat a meal in comfort, which I think after this pandemic, I think people will be queuing up to get out of the house. So again, we're already ready to go, but it's about doing it when it's safely.
Fantastic. No, absolutely brilliant. I think you'll join me in saying a massive thank you to Ian Darler there for a fantastic story, and obviously great insight into both his work and obviously into his charity side of things he does as well. Inspirational story, and we really appreciate your time today, and thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.